So here we are in the 4th generation Lexus GS, and it's a very nice cabin. It's very large, it's a mid-size sedan, it's got lots of features, and it's also very reliable. So it sounds like a pretty good car. But is it the perfect car? Well, the first thing people are going to criticise is the infotainment. And I actually think it's not that bad. It's definitely not best in class, but it's also not that bad. I found it pretty usable, to be honest. And you sit here, and naturally you can recline back in your seat, and your hand is going to naturally rest where the controls are. And it's already in your field of view, and it's recessed further back, so you're naturally going to see it without having to move your head much. And then I actually think that actually works quite well. Now, if you are buying this car, I would definitely say to get one with the larger 12.3 inch screen than the standard one with the smaller, I think it's a 7 inch screen or 8 inch screen, something like that. But basically this recessed area is huge, and it looks great when it's filled up, but the smaller screens have all this blank area around the dash, and it just looks silly. So make sure you get the larger 12.3 inch screen. Now, they did make some updates to the infotainment in the 2015 model year. They added a back button over here, a physical back button, and they also added a enter button on the side. That enter button on the side is quite handy. In this one, you've got to push down this way. You've got to push down quite a bit, to the point that sometimes you push and move the controller as well at the same time. So that enter button is a lot easier on the side of this controller here. The graphics were updated as well, and you now have the option to choose a particular menu that covered the entire screen rather than having a fixed 2/3, 1/3 setup. The gauge cluster also was updated as well. The gauge cluster in the pre-facelift model, so 2013, 2012 to 2014, they had the older gauge cluster, and it's actually a nice looking cluster, but there's actually not much you can do with it. It's colour, it's very clear, high definition, but it's not until the 2015 models where they facelifted the interior and you had a much more usable gauge cluster. Now, if the infotainment system does bug you a bit, and you do want to get a GS, but you're kind of holding back because of the infotainment, you can actually get some. There are some aftermarket solutions out there, and they are actually pretty good. There's the Grom V-Line. There's another brand I can't remember the name of, but you'll see it on the screen. But these guys do really good aftermarket systems, and it will update your system to usually an Apple CarPlay or Android Auto system, and that will definitely improve and upgrade the amount of things that you can do with the infotainment. Now, the overall cabin design is actually really good. It's a really nice place to be in. You have soft touch materials everywhere. The dashboard is a nice, very soft plush leather with nice contrast stitching on there. Up on the door parts here, again, soft touch. We've got very, very soft, supple leather on the sides, and even down the bottoms, where usually most places cheap out, we've got soft touch in the bottom. You've got leather on the sides here where your knees are in contact with. Obviously the steering wheel, the shift lever, the armrest is very, very, very soft. The whole cabin is just really, really comfortable and soft. The overall layout is very large. There's lots of space. Buttons are all very easy to use. My only probably gripes with the interior is that the buttons could be a bit nicer. The volume control and the tuning knobs, those knobs are both, they feel very, very nice. However, the rest of the buttons do feel a bit cheap, and I think that's where you get the difference between, say, Mercedes C-Class or an E-Class compared to this car, where they do have better switchgear. They've got nice aluminium buttons everywhere, whereas in here they do have kind of that cheap plastic, and I think that does sort of bring down the quality of the cabin. But overall, it's really nice. I've got a very nice analog clock here. I know some people don't like the analog clock, but I think it looks really classy, and when it's dark, it lights up really nicely as well. Now, I would say that the GS, the 4th Gen GS, has some of the best seats that you can get. They are so comfortable, and particularly with the luxury package. So with the base model, standard, you get 10-way power adjustable seats on both the driver and the passenger side. If you upgrade to the F-Sport package, you get 16-way seats in the driver's seat, but you still only get 10-way in the passenger seat. Now this car is equipped with the luxury package, and this gives you 18 ways of movement in both the driver and the front passenger. And just to give you a real quick run through of what they are, you've got forward and back movement, you've got up and down movement, you've got tilt in the seat, you've got reclining backrests, you've also got upper back support, you've got lumbar support, you've got pelvic support, you've got the thigh extensioners, and you've also got the side bolsters as well. So there's just so many ways of movement, and this is great for longer road trips, or even if you're just commuting every day in traffic. It's such a comfortable seat. Now, the back seats of the GS, this is also another massive pro of this car. Being a mid-size sedan, of course, you've got a slightly longer wheelbase than the compact sedans like the IS, and it really shows. You've got great headroom in here, really good legroom. In fact, this seat's moved back. It's normally quite a bit further forward, but this is definitely a car that's great for road trips with lots of people in the front and back seats. Now, of course, the middle seat pretty much in most sedans is not really that great, because obviously it slightly is raised, so only good for kids or really short trips. But the middle seats are not going to be very comfortable, of course. Now in the back, as well as all the room we've got obviously rear seat vents. We've got the sunshades. This is part of the luxury package. This is a separate optional extra to get these rear sunshades. You've got one here, and you've got one right behind you over there as well. And now with the luxury package, one of the great features you get is you get these rear seat controls. You don't get this on the F Sport models or the base models. Only the luxury models get these rear seat controls here. And what you've got is you've got 3-zone climate control. So the front guys can control their climate, and down here you can control your own climate down here. You've also got a power rear sunshade which you can control, and audio controls as well. Now if you get the cold weather package, that comes with heated rear seats. So you've got your heated rear seats for both outboard seats. The cold weather package also gives the driver a heated steering wheel as well. So unfortunately you'll miss out on these features if you don't get the luxury package, so definitely, if you can, get the luxury package. You've also got controls in the back here for the front passenger seat. So there's actually, if you might be able to see on the camera there, but if I move the seat back, you can see that coming through? Yeah. So you can control these seats, the front passenger seat, the tilt, and the forward and back movements as well. Very handy. Probably annoying if you've got kids who are mischievous and trying to play around with your seat, but for good rear passengers, that's a very easy way. Particularly, if you're a driver as well, I find because there's so many controls, especially in the luxury package, there's so many controls, it's hard to explain to the front passenger how to move their seats. So I actually find it easy as a driver to use these controls to move their seats than the time it would take to explain to them, hey, which button do I use to change my seat position? So these are also very helpful, these controls, and again, they're only on the luxury package. One of the best standard features of the GS, in fact I would say of many Lexus cars, is the sound system. Now you can get this car equipped with the standard 14 speaker system, or you can upgrade to the 17 speaker Mark Levinson system. And I've actually owned both. I've owned both the GS with and without the Mark Levinson sound system. And now, of course, the Mark Levinson one sounds better. It's definitely nicer. You can definitely tell. But I would actually argue that most people are not really going to notice the difference. And here's the reason why. The standard of the standard sound systems is so high. It comes with, again, 14 speakers. You've got a subwoofer in the back, and it sounds the cabin acoustics and the whole sound stage is so good in these cars that the difference between this and the Mark Levinson becomes, a lot smaller. And just the other day I was driving in a C-Class and in a CLA, and they had, their standard sound systems in there, their bass sound systems, and they sounded absolutely garbage, absolutely crap. Now I'm sure if you upgraded to the Burmester or the Harman Kardon systems, I'm sure they are a lot better, but the great thing about Lexus cars is their bass sound systems are actually usually really, really, really good. And this, I would probably argue, is the best bass sound system which you can get. So, if you can get the Mark Levinson system, definitely get it. But if you're weighing up other features, if you want to get, radar cruise control, if you want to get the HUD, if you want to get the luxury package, I would say you can compromise on the Mark Levinson and get those other features if you really want those other features. Like any other used car, you've got to kind of work with what you've got. And ideally you can get Mark Levinson, but you're probably not going to get everything you want. So I would actually prioritize the other features. And I'm generally pretty fussy with my sound systems, but this one has definitely impressed me. One of the other features that Lexus has over all of the competition, none of the competitors come close in this regard. The best feature of these cars, and probably one of the biggest reasons why people still buy these cars, is because of the reliability. In fact, there's one guy I spoke to, he's a mechanic in the US, he works at one of the Lexus dealerships there, and he said this is the car they saw least in their workshops. It was, he said, one of the most reliable cars that Lexus has ever made. Now to add to that, this is a 3.5 litre model, and it has, Lexus's notorious 3.5 litre V6 that is incredibly reliable. It was out since 06, still going in their latest models. They still have this 3.5 litre, although probably is going now to a twin turbo and all of that with the way emissions are changing. But the 3.5 litre in particular is probably the most reliable engine option that you can get in this car. You've also got the 2.5 litre V6 as well. It doesn't have direct input injection like the 3.5 litre, so it's slightly less reliable, but it's still a very reliable Lexus/Toyota engine. I think they changed it halfway through during the facelifts to a 2-litre turbo. I've heard that one is quite underpowered, so probably best to go for the 3.5 if you can. And then lastly, well, not lastly, but second to last, we have the 450H, which is the 3.5 litre hybrid, and that I've heard also is very, very reliable for a hybrid. And you get the benefits of a pretty fast car, but also slightly better economy than the 3.5 litre V6 engine. Lastly, there is the Lexus GSF. Obviously, that's the top of the end model. That's a nice 5 litre V8, and that's a whole different beast in itself. And if you have the money, go buy a GSF. Now, there are some common issues with this car, and if you read a lot online and speaking to some different people at Lexus, what I've found is that there are 3 common issues with this car. All right, 3 common issues. The first one is the analog clock, and I believe it was fixed in the later years, but in the earlier years it would start to run a bit fast, and so basically you've got to replace the analog clock. So a bit of a pain, but nothing too mechanically or structurally serious. The next common issue with this car is the amplifiers, which are in the trunk, and basically you can get water or moisture in that area, and it can obviously damage the Mark Levinson or the standard Pioneer amplifiers. And you can obviously replace them, you can try and repair them depending on how much water damage there could be, but just be wary of that. Now that one will cost you a bit more, because obviously it is a specific amplifier. You can go for aftermarket solutions, but the amplifiers in these cars are not just an amplifier. Some of the audio controls are actually in the amplifier, so you kind of still do need the amp. If you do buy an aftermarket amp and don't run it through the standard amp, then the volume controls don't work, because the volume controls actually link straight to the amplifier. So it's a weird setup. But anyway, look out for those amplifier issues. Make sure you check it out before you buy one, to make sure the amp does work. The last common issue is the door lock actuators. So apparently they can just fail pretty easily. I've had no issues in my GS, in both of my GSs, but there you go. That's the 3 common issues. Nothing mechanically, nothing structurally, nothing electronically. It's basically just those 3 things. So if you take care of your cars, you'll be off really, really well in this car in terms of reliability. All GSs come standard with the drive mode selector, and you get 3 modes: normal, eco and sport. Now the sport mode changes the throttle response, and also adjusts the transmission. Basically it holds gears for longer and adjusts the shift points as well. The luxury and F Sport packages will give you Sport S Plus mode as well as Sport mode. And what Sport S Plus does is it gives you the adaptive variable suspension, AVS, and that obviously will stiffen the suspension when you're in Sport S Plus mode. And it also gives you VGRS, which is variable gear ratio steering, I think it is, which obviously tightens the steering, gives it a more heavier feel to the steering wheel. So you only get that in the luxury and F Sport models. The F Sport models also get a dynamic handling package. I think you also get rear wheel steering as well. So if you're more into your driving handling and all that, then the F Sport obviously is the way to go. However, the luxury package will still give you the option, but it'll be a lot smoother. Now that's another huge pro to this car. I think one of the biggest pros of this car is the ride comfort. It is extremely, extremely smooth. It is extremely smooth, and it's definitely, again, one of the smoothest cars you'll drive on. Great for long road trips, but also great for your city commutes as well. Now, within its class, the GS does fall short in the performance department. So if you're wanting a more hardcore driving experience, the GS might not be for you. But the GS350 is still no slouch either. It's plenty fast for everyday driving, hitting 0 to 100 in a very respectable 5.6 seconds, whilst the 5-litre V8 GSF model hits 0 to 100 in 4.5 seconds. One of the improvements they made over the previous generation is that with the paddle shifters, you can downshift any time, and it will automatically drop a gear. I'm in now 5th gear, I'm in 4th gear, and basically the older generations you had to go into manual mode and then you could only use the paddle shifters. And I'll quickly I'm on an off ramp here, and I'll give you an idea. There's a really nice intake noise as well, and there's actually a pipe. If you open up the engine cover, there's actually a induction pipe that kind of faces towards the cabin, and what it does is it just kind of amplifies. So it's not a fake synthetic sound played through the speakers. It's still real induction noise, but it's just amplified and pointed towards the cabin to give you that really nice sound. Really, the GS looks a lot nicer once you get towards the facelift in 2016. You get the newer spindle grille that Lexus has on all their cars nowadays. So here's the catch: the 2016 obviously Plus, looks better on the outside. The 2016 or 2015 models and up have the better infotainment. And they have a better gauge cluster as well. So obviously the newer models are better. But the catch is that they're obviously a lot more expensive. At least here in New Zealand, the difference is about 20-30 grand difference. It's about twice the price to get a facelift model. So if you have the money, buy a facelift. And if you don't, then there are a couple of sort of poor man's things that you can do to improve the car. So the first thing that you can do is you can get aftermarket front bumpers. And there's a great company called CarAct. They do really good bumper conversions. You can go for a GSF style one. You can go for the nicer newer one with the updated headlights. You can even get a full GSF conversion kit, and that'll cost you probably $5,000 or so. It's not cheap, but it's still way cheaper than buying a 2016 plus model. In regards to infotainment, I already mentioned that you can upgrade the infotainment with some aftermarket solutions to bring that up to the 21st century with all your Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. So I think, really, once you've improved the infotainment and once you've given the exterior a bit of a light refresh, then I think you're getting a pretty nice, slick looking car with more functionality in the interior for a pretty good price as well. So I'm sitting here in a third generation IS because I sold my two GSs. I do a bit of buying and selling. The GSs were great cars. It was just this deal came up, and so I bought it. But since owning this car and since shooting the review for the GS, I've had more thoughts on it. In fact, if anything, I've just, appreciated the GS even more after owning this car. I love this car. This is a beautiful car. The ICE is really nice. I'm very happy with it. But the seats in that was the first thing I noticed. The seats in the GS are just way more comfortable. The amount of adjustment, how soft the leather is completely different to the IS. So I do miss that. The ride comfort is just way softer and smoother. And I just think that, if comfort is something that you really value, then the GS is really strong in that area. There are other areas which the IS is better, sure. I'll do a review on the IS soon. But if comfort is something that you really value, particularly if you're coming from an IS, then I really have to applaud the GS in the comfort area. I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you found it helpful and informative in weighing up whether this car is going to be good for you or not. And please like, subscribe, join the channel, and you'll see more good car reviews and Lexus content.